No, this is not a political podcast. I am not going
No.
to comment on the administration or the State of the Union. I'll leave that for people to discuss over beers.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I would be signing off if it were.
and there goes Skip.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the idea here is that we are on year 2 of our merger with Managed Services Platform and Virtual C. The two of these parent organizations merged together in 2021 officially and became HumanizeIT or HumanizeIT, depending on if you're using a verb or a noun. I get asked that question all the time still, 2 years later. Is it HumanizeIT or is it HumanizeIT? And the answer is yes.
Correct.
So
Absolutely
both
correct.
are trademarked down at the USPTO. So the idea is, like, how are things going? Like, Skip, like, I wanted to bring in your thoughts. And, like, people don't get to see the inside of a merger and all the pain and all the promise that happens with it. The goal was originally is that we were a VCIO firm and we did coaching. And then all of a sudden we were doing it well enough. Like, why it'd be great if we had the software and control the software to start delivering what we're already doing. Everything we're coaching, everything we're talking about should be implemented in the software to make things easier for account managers. And so this idea gave birth to a large acquisition, at least for me and Skip, and has resulted into where we are today with this completely reworked software. And, like, but there's a lot of work that goes into this, and we got a lot of work to go. And the pain that happens on the back end, oh my gosh, people, like the little things. And then people bring it up constantly of like, oh, why are you doing this? I'm like, do you not think I want to? So, yes. Skip, what are some of your highlights and low points over the last 2 years of this merger?
Well, I just want to say, for those of you out there considering a rebrand, consider very, very carefully. Now, I still firmly believe we've made the right choice. What we were doing there is absolutely the path we went on, went down the right path. But the rebranding is going to open up every tiny little bit of your data sets, your communications, how you authenticate and collaborate on every level, and is going to challenge you into thinking how you're going to do that. So, when we took over, very much, just all the way in on the Managed Services Platform.com URL, so I took that over to, provide a lot of the very operational management stuff. And so I went all in on that. But that's not necessarily the long-term plan we want to go with. So we come in with HumanizeIT.biz as well. And so now I have one very practical management, avenue, and another one where we're wanting to go. So if I do something as simple as create a Google Doc, where do I put that?
Where do you create it?
Where does it need to be? Does it need to be in the older domain or the newer one? And at some point you've got to cut, but then what are we going to do with that old stuff? Are we going to move it all over at once? It's constantly opening up questions about how we were going to proceed with this. So rebranding, yes, absolutely a good thing. But you've got to think through all the details. I think, Adam, you and I are both pretty technical. So we run into these issues and, we don't throw our hands up and go, oh, why is that happening? We look at that and go, oh, yeah, if we do that, then we're going to have to do that, then we're going to do that. So we get it. But, man, that's a lot of, I'll throw it out there. There's a lot of pondercating.
I'm going to go out and say nuance. Like, the things you don't think about, like calendars, for instance. Like the other day, like I was just irritated. And it wasn't at Skip, and I probably came across that I was irritated at Skip. Like I was trying to figure out, like, is Skip in session or not? Right? So we are a virtual workplace. We are all across the United States. We know we need to get somebody in the Pacific Northeast just to cover the corners, Northeast and Northwest, and we will be everywhere. We'll have a nice star. And what we need to do is think about like, okay, is Skip busy right now? Like I need to message him and ask him a question. But if he's talking to a customer right now, like I can look on Slack, I can say, okay, his light's green, which means he's at his computer. But if I start
Yeah.
messaging him and start getting incessant, like it's going to distract him from his session. But I would look over my calendar. There's nothing on the calendar. I have the wrong calendar pulled up. Because we have 3 different calendars, people. And
Absolutely.
so it's all about like, did I merge them? I might have unselected at one point in time. These little things. And like, how do you move your calendar over? Because now we have all our integrations with one calendar. I made the migration over and it's taken me, 3 months to get rid of the old calendar entries.
Yep.
Every once in a
And
while, we end up in the wrong room together. Like, wait a minute, you know and Skip's in one room and I'm in the other, and so these little things with mergers like just are annoying.
yeah, I
And
mean,
we're a
because we don't
small
all
merger,
move in
people.
sync on that. So I am still on the older calendar. And the reason being is we have just a ton of
Integrations.
preset links and all the stuff that happens. And at some point, yes, I am going to have to move over. But we're going to do that very methodically. But yeah, in the meantime, and so being, out of sync with some of your team members is a very real possibility. You just got to understand when that's going to happen and how to deal with it. Like, when I look at our calendar, it just looks like every color available, on there because I've got all of my different calendars, all of our team members, and then I have various calendars for some of our different team members as well. So, there will be a event one particular time of the day where several of us are at that one event, and I'll have that, entry blocked out in like 4 or 5 different color bars as I'm showing everyone in there, and it just gets crazy.
Yeah, and that's just like calendars are just one thing, but also the the idea of like which website do people go to, which one's your default. So we have 3. We have virtualc.biz, we have humanizeit.biz, and we have managedservicesplatform.com. Well, the new brand, the brainchild of this merger is HumanizeIT.biz to merge both of them into this. And so people ask all the time, like, oh, when are you going to get rid of that URL? It's super confusing. Your branding's confusing. And the thing is, if you switch it all at once, you kill your SEO. And you desperately want to switch your domain over, but HubSpot won't let you because you need an enterprise account, and that's an additional $18,000 a year. And the engineer in you is crying because this is a simple host header. This is not even something that's complicated, but I can't do it. So then you got to tap into Cloudflare and different services to try to figure out how to make this work. And even then, you've got to give it time because Google has indexed your entire site. And so you've got to run both simultaneously until the SEO of the old site gets taken over by the new site. In the meantime, your competitors are sitting out there and they're enjoying their SEO and they're trying to overcome what you're doing. And now you show up as a new brand, but you're technically an old brand. So is the consumer confidence there? And like these weird things you never really thought about before become your everyday decisions. And so I try to take as much of this off of Sebastian and Skip's plate, but they feel the pain of like what's going on with the merger. And it's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
just,
and
I did
it's
not expect the
communication.
number of things to be this hard.
Yep. So, and I've, I maybe tried to straddle the fence on this a bit too much, but just general communications. If I'm following up on an email, I really have to give a thought to how this person came to us because now I need to make sure I respond in kind with the right email address. Which one does it need to come from? I mean, for the most part, everything goes out Humanize IT, but there are some of them where I look at them and go, if I send that from Humanize IT, they're going to be confused. But why? Who is this guy? All right. And so I have to switch. And so that conscious thought that has to go into all your communications when
Yep.
we're in person and we're talking to people, do we want to leverage this, great history that we have with Managed Services Platform, or do we want to just focus on the new elements, and the exciting stuff that we released under Humanize IT? When do we bring that history in? It gets nuanced. It is a very very
Yeah.
good term for it, because
I
it is
mean, yeah,
conversation to conversation almost.
yeah. Things that don't matter. Like we want to establish that Humanize IT has been around since 2014, and that we are a refreshed app that has a very deep history of development and community involvement. But at the same time, we want people to know that we're new, that we are a fresh face. That it's kind of like I'm trying to think of who would have like. It's kind of like when Office 365 first launched. Microsoft Office was great. It was hard. 2000, if you guys remember, was it 2003 when they first? No, yeah, 2003 was the last time you had the full menu system, and then the ribbon came out in 2007.
Oh my gosh, the ribbon debate. Oh, no, let's not
And
open
so,
that thing
like
back
the
up.
whole ribbon debate came up. The ribbon is the best way to go. We know that now. The menu system was old and dead, even though many of us loved it because we knew exactly where to go, exactly what to click on. So Microsoft Office is the de facto solution. It is the best. It is very deep. It has a lot of great tools in it because it's got some weird quirks to it that we just learned to live with. But the power is there. So Humanize IT is a layer on top. It's our ribbon, so to speak. It is this. We used to be a reporting software. Now we are an account management software, but we still have that depth of reporting and analytics and being able to build these really powerful tools. And so, but nowadays we have this really cool, this is the way forward. And so we're really excited about it. And you got to show that as a merger, like got to be excited. So you listen to our podcast, which you are right now, or you watch our YouTube videos or our webinars. And the idea is that we want to rehumanize our approach to IT. We want to get out of this manufactured channel feel and into this, be genuine and show people what's going on, but while not ignoring our history. And so as a merger, it's hard to find that balance unless you've actually gone through that exercise before. How do you replace who you were with who you are now without invalidating your history?
That is very important. Like some of the features in our tool, again, I do a lot of the onboarding, and you roll the calendar back several years, and with Managed Services Platform, it's a great tool. It's still, a great functionality in how you can use our meeting report tool to drive a meeting. And
Yeah.
so, I'm talking with the members about that, and I'm kind of demonstrating this. I'm saying it's older software, but it's still 100% valid. We can still use this today, but it's not the only option. And then you open up the door, and we've got, all these other things that we can do in addition to that, and being able to communicate that out invalidating, because there are just a few elements of our software that's still on the older code. We don't want people looking at that going, oh, that's the old stuff, that doesn't work. Well, no, it does. That's why it's still there. It's still very, very valid. We haven't replaced it because it's doing what it needs to do, and it's doing it very well.
Yeah.
So, how do we blend all these together? I guess, kind of and the thought of a bigger takeaway on this is be very, very detailed with your plans. If you're going to go through some sort of, rebranding, but the huge caveat on that is be willing to almost entirely scrap your plans in a heartbeat, because things are going to change so dramatically.
Adaptability. We have been, like, I've been using the Agile framework to manage all this. Like, we meet weekly, we have our numbers, we talk about them in our stand-ups every morning, and then every Tuesday we talk about the overarching numbers. So in our stand-ups, we talk about, okay, what are we doing today? Where are we going? What do we need to focus on? And then catch up a little bit, like, because we're a virtual workplace, we don't have a water cooler. But then, on Tuesdays, we sit down and we say, okay, where are we at? How far are we migrating through this? What tasks do we have in front of us? Let's get this going. And so that we move forward as an organization consistently. But then, like, if something that we thought was a great idea isn't working, pivot or shift directions and try to get still to the goal. The goal is to teach MSPs and technical people how to have better conversations with their clients. And every once in a while, find something like, hey, we were going in the wrong direction there. Let's shift and turn over here and let's lean into this idea. So it used to be that we didn't want to really automate anything because we really want people to focus on that human relationship. So going on site with a client and auditing their hardware in person is important because it gives you an excuse to chit chat with the customer, which is more valuable than anything. However, there are things that we can automatically pull into the software that don't need human interaction. It comes right out of ConnectWise. It comes right out of Autotask. And that's okay. We can pull that right out while still encouraging conversations. So we've changed a little bit on our goals there, in that you can get instant value as long as you're running a PSA, and we still encourage you to relate to the customer and talk through things rather than just telling them how it is and completely disassociating with them.
Yep.
So,
Well, and you learn. So I struggled with that value proposition, or that philosophy, I guess, in not automating a few years ago. But I've really seized on one of your terms, Adam, in that we don't automate, but we're lazy, right? And that I think communicates well what we're trying to do. So you do need to make sure that you're able to communicate what it is you're trying to do. How's this rebrand going to affect? What's the value of the rebrand? What's the goal going forward? So you do need to be very clear in your goals on that, and there needs to be some consistency. So as we pick up just in using those silly terms, we don't automate, but we're lazy, we're able to communicate a unified and, it's a bit silly, but, a somewhat clear message to our prospects, our members, in how things are done. And that's really, really important.
Yeah, I've started thinking of it in terms of, and you're going to hear it first on this podcast, I guess, conversation starters. So in our software, it's like people wanted to have more conversations with their clients about budgets, about aligning projects with what the client is doing, but they didn't know how to get there. So we thought, oh, well, why don't we use our asset management tool to create budgets? Because that'll get them started on the conversation. And then we got feedback from MSPs like, you know what? We don't really talk about assets and budget so much. We talk about projects. Like, oh, cool. Let's add that feature in. Let's map projects on the budget. So we have the project roadmap and the assets can both be listed on the budget. And now everybody's kind of online. And now it's not the solution. It is the conversation starter. And you'll come up with the end of the solution being a unified budget between you and your customer at the end of your client touch point. And so now you have permission to walk in the door with this tool that has the data on it, and you can move it around to come up with a solution. Everybody's happy. Something that did not exist in the community before now exists. And so you can now say, you sign up for the software, you click, and you immediately have a budget. Like, what do I do with this information? That's a great question. You should ask your customer.
Yep, absolutely.
And now you're going to sell a bunch of projects, not because you're selling them to the customer, but they're seeing the gap analysis, they're seeing the projection, and you're making them look good because they have to come up with this budget anyways. And
Yep.
you just did it for them. And so this is the goal. You want to have more conversations. And with our merger, we started off with, no, we're not going to automate anything. And here we are 2 years later thinking, okay, there are some things that are valuable to automate in order to facilitate our end goal, which is having conversations with your clients, not presentations, not feeding them a solution, but rather working with them to get a solution. And there are ways to automate that, but not the conversation itself. We're augmenting the conversation, not automating it. And so maybe that's a podcast for a future day, is augmented conversations, not automated conversations.
There we go. Yeah, I like those.
Yeah, I know I'm going to be having a really great podcast coming up here with one of our guest speakers. And we're going to talk about like taking care of the meat computer. Or was it? I think I can remember the title of it. Elizabeth Copeland, if you're out there listening to this, she and I are going to have a conversation around one of her topics at MSP Geek this year. And it's just a really great conversation about how to, you're really great at taking care of technical things and you can read the manuals, but how do you take care of the person? And how to transition into that mentality. And that's what I love about like this whole merger is like there are a ton of technical things that we could focus on. Like if I just focused on the technical, if I just focus on, okay, we're going to merge the calendars. Then we're going to work on DNS. And then and I can go down these little tiny details the whole time. I wouldn't have aligned with what Skip needed, what Sebastian needed, and what our customers need. But hey, our technical solutions would be in place. Our DNS would be resolved. You wouldn't have to go to MangedServicesPlatform.com anymore. You would go to HumanizeIT.biz, and that would do everything for you. If I just focused on the technical, I am good as an engineer. I know how to do this stuff, but I focus on the human first, so that instead what you get is you get 14 to 16 months of solid development, 12 of which were us building the framework. And then the last like 2 to 3 months have been us listening to MSPs on what they actually need and adjusting what we did. So I have only so many hours in a day. So what we did was Skip, Sebastian, and I all sat down and listened to what do you guys want versus let's make everything perfect and make it technically complete.
Yeah.
There was 2 different ways to go with this merger. One was to focus on all the technical, throw X $100,000 at software, convert it over, make it exactly the way it is, but in React, and then spend our time merging the 2 URLs into, or 3 URLs into one, and do all the technical. But where's the human in that?
That's it.
I mean, where's the relatability?
Right. If you're going to rebrand, why? Is it just because you've got a better marketing term? Then that's a very technical thing to do. I guess go down that. But most people, the rebranding evolves out of a merger or a shift of some dramatic,
a desire to be more.
Yes, and so you have got to focus on the reason and not the to-dos behind that reasoning, or as a result of that reasoning. So yeah, I mean, you've got to really keep the human focus on it.
Yeah, and this is the importance of having a clear goal, a clear vision, so that as you're moving, you can adapt. Our clear vision is to have better conversations or facilitate better conversations between clients and technical consultants. If you really want to get to the core of it, because it's not just MSPs, it's all technical consultants. Those better conversations, so that as we're merging the brands, we think, how do we do that? We know our why. How are we going to do that? And then we make better decisions on a weekly basis and adapt. Maybe that means that the URL won't get shifted for a year. Maybe that means that our HubSpot is going to be a little bit messy for a while. But it does mean that when you guys have an issue with our software, that is our first. Yes. And when you guys make a recommendation saying, hey, is there any way to automate my QBR so that I don't have to talk to the customer? I can just send these out automatically. Yeah, no. We can clearly say that is not what we do.
Yep.
And when you say, how do I align with my customer? You say, that's a great question. Let's talk. I love this. It's been great. Like the State of the Union, things are going extremely well. And we are having a lot of fun with this merger. It's scary. It's exciting. It's 2 years later, and we are still trying to iron out things. And we probably will for years now in the future. We've all worked for corporations that have like 16 different URLs for email addresses. We've all been around like, oh, that used to be so-and-so. The goal is, what did you do? Did you augment? That's what we've done here at HumanizeIT. We are smoking along. When you see our software, when people come in and do our demos and our trials, they're like, holy crap, where was this 3 months ago? Versus if we had just done a forklift and we had just done the technical specifics, we would be having the same conversations we did before the merger. So in that case, why did we merge? So when you're doing this stuff, it's fun. It's a great ride. It's frustrating. It's interesting. It is a problem to solve, which all we engineers enjoy.
Yes.
And I look forward to, maybe we'll do one of these again next year at this time and see where we are. Future Adam, future Skip, I hope that you are not using the old URL anymore. I hope that you've hit your growth goals or smashed them. and I hope that things are going amazing. So thank you, Skip, for
Sounds like a
coming
plan.
on, and we'll see
You
you
bet.
next week.
See ya.